Hi, boys and girls. This is Mr. Tom. In today's Bible story, I wonder who that is. Let's go see. Who is it?
It's Mrs. Susan.
Mrs. Susan? Mrs. Susan went to the grocery store. It can't be Mrs. Susan. Who is it?
It's Mrs. Susan.
She says she's Mrs. Susan. Mrs. Susan went to the grocery store. Who is it really?
It's Mrs. Susan.
I guess I better check and see who it is. But never open the door when you hear a door knock. Never open the door without your mommies and daddies, okay? Make sure they know who's there with you when you open the door. Okay? Okay. Let's see who's really here. Look who it is.
Hi, Mr. Tom. Thank you so much for letting me in.
It's Mrs.
I forgot my coupons.
You forgot your coupons?
Yes, I had to come back and get them.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to open the door for you.
Me too.
You know, this is kind of funny. It reminds me of a Bible story that we're going to read about today. It's whenever Peter had been arrested and put in prison, and an angel released him from prison, and then he went to knock on some friends' doors, and they didn't believe that it was really him. Let's go read this Bible story.
All right, let's go hear what he has to say.
King Herod Agrippa, he was an evil king. He had James, the brother of John. Both of them were apostles, but he had James put to death. And he was persecuting the Christians. He also had Peter arrested, Peter the apostle, and he put him in prison because he thought that this would please the religious leaders, the chief priests and the Sanhedrin. Peter was put in prison guarded by 4 squads of guards. Each guard had 4 soldiers in it. So there was 16 guards that were assigned to guard Peter. Herod planned to bring Peter to trial after the Passover celebration. But as soon as they heard that Peter was in prison, the believers began to pray earnestly as hard as they could for the protection of Peter and that he might be released, that he might be set free. That night, before Peter's trial was supposed to happen the next day, Peter was asleep, chained between 2 guards. And there were other guards standing at the gates of the prison. Suddenly, a bright light filled the cell, and an angel stood before Peter. The angel woke Peter and said, "Get up." Then the chains that were holding Peter to the guards fell off. "Get dressed, put on your coat and your shoes," the angel said. The angel led Peter out of the cell. Look here. Here's a picture of where the angel appeared before Peter. And you see the soldiers here? They were asleep. And then you see the chains right here falling off of Peter's hands as the angel comes to rescue Peter. At this time, Peter thought that he was dreaming. They walked through the prison, past the first guard, and then past the second guard, and they slipped past them, and they came to the big gate of the prison. The gate swung open all by itself, and they walked right out. No guard stopped them or asked them any questions. They started walking down the street when the angel suddenly disappeared. Peter finally realized that God had set him free from prison. He hurried to the house where he knew the other believers, the other Christians, were praying for him. He knocked at the door, and a servant girl named Rhoda came to see who was there. She recognized Peter's voice but was so excited she forgot to open the door for him. And she ran back and told everybody in the room that Peter was outside, that Peter was at the door, and that Peter was here, she cried. And they said, "You're talking crazy talk." The other people said, "It must mean that he is already dead, that Herod has already killed Peter, and that his angel is here. It can't be Peter." Meanwhile, Peter kept knocking and calling for them to open the door. He was outside knocking for trying to get in the door. Finally, someone let him inside. Peter told the believers, all the Christians there, how God had set him free with an angel who came and set him free and led him out of the prison. The next morning, there was a big problem at the prison. When they discovered that Peter was missing, Herod questioned all the guards, and then he had them sentenced to death. He was an evil king. But in spite of Herod's persecution of Peter and the apostles and the Christians and Peter kept on preaching the good news about Jesus, and the gospel kept spreading and spreading, and more people came to know Jesus, and the church grew and grew. Wow, what a wonderful Bible story. Thank you for letting me read to you another Bible story this week. Remember that God loves you more than anything. I'll see you next week.